The MIW Disruptive podcast is sponsored by Mentorch. Mentorch is a social development network for mentorship. Go to mentorch.app to seek knowledge and leave a legacy.
Welcome to the Disruptive podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. Minority Innovation Weekend is a weekend summit dedicated to aiding minority innovators launch tech-focused startups, exploring emerging technologies, and showcasing tech startups that have a minority founder or co-founder. During each episode, we will discuss innovation, news about tech startup, as well as the startup ecosystem, and interview people of color throughout the startup ecosystem.
Welcome to the MIW Disrupted podcast hosted by Sir Walter and Jerome. Today we have a very special guest. She's the program manager for Techstars NYC. I'm talking about Tai Hutchinson. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for such an exciting intro. It's such a no one ever does something like that. I'm usually the one doing the intro, so thank you.
That's awesome. Problem.
All right, let's just get right into it. Some of our listeners may not be familiar with Techstars. Could you tell us a little about the program?
Yeah, so Techstars, we have very many different aspects of Techstars, right? So there's the accelerator program that we have startup weekends, and we have a variety of other things that we do to work with entrepreneurs. Our biggest aspect of Techstars is the accelerator program. So the accelerator program runs in about 50 different cities all over the globe, right? So from Korea to Norway to LA to DC to New York City, we are we have a pretty expansive network, and we're all over the place. And what the accelerator does is we look for companies, we look for entrepreneurs and companies that are willing to do more faster and really want to grow at an accelerated rate. When I say accelerated, I do mean accelerated. So we have about 2 years worth of work crammed into 13 weeks of the program. Month one is really about mentor engagement. You're really getting to learn about Techstars. You're learning all the foundational things about that Techstars teaches you about, learning about KPIs, learning about, OKRs and all of those great things. And you're learning and you're meeting your lead mentor. And we have something that happens in the first month called Mentor Madness. So companies are meeting with anywhere from 30 to 50 mentors over a 5 to 10 day span. And that varies from accelerator to accelerator, but the general gist is that you really get to learn the mentors in the network and really just jump right in. Month two is iteration. So you're constantly, after you've met with those mentors, you're working on your product, you're getting some traction, you're taking a lot of the feedback that you learn from those mentors to really grow and scale your business. And then month three is learning how to talk to investors and really refining your products and getting ready for demo day. So all in all, it is a lot, but it is a really great experience. We have such a great network throughout across the globe. I can't even underscore how valuable that experience is. And I'm with Techstars New York City. So we are really pumped to really work with as many diverse founders as we can. And really, as we say, looking under every rock and knocking on every door and talking to as many entrepreneurship groups and other network catalysts that we can to find the best companies.
So you mentioned, well, I have a quick question.
Okay.
You mentioned that, I think I saw on one of your web pages you recently had a demo day, right? Do you
Yes.
have multiple demo days throughout the year?
Yeah, so we have, New York City has, we run one program a year, one accelerator program a year. So we just had our demo day October 8th. It was such a fabulous event. We were able to record all of the pitches from our companies, and our companies represent a wide variety of industries, from future of work, fintech, healthcare, ed tech, and community-based focused. And demo day was just phenomenal. We also had our fireside chat with Brad Feld. He's one of the co-founders of Techstars, and David Cohen was also a part of that demo day. So really great for our mentors and our investors to be involved, and for our companies to showcase their skills, and show the world what they've been working on.
All right. You also mentioned two acronyms earlier, KPI and OKR. What exactly is that?
Yeah, so KPIs are key performance indicators. So it's super important for companies to really understand what is your stake in the ground, right? Like what do you need? What are the metrics that you need to have your company grow and scale, right? So for Techstars New York City, we have KPI meetings every single Monday. So it's an hour-long meeting. Companies get about 5 to 7 minutes to talk about, their traction from the week before, their metrics from the week before, rather. And then we talk about it as a team. So all of the other founders get to weigh in, ask questions. Our amazing MD gets to weigh in and ask questions, and really getting you to like push and go faster and do more. So that is like one of the big things. And the OKRs are objectives and key results. So that's really goal setting frameworks for defining and like tracking like your objectives. Yeah, and then we have tons of other foundational things that we do throughout the program as well. But yeah.
The mentors, are they local to New York, or are they coming from other parts of the United States or the world?
Great question. So they're from all over the world, right? I think the great thing about being part of the Techstars New York City ecosystem is that we don't just have people who are based here, right? People come from everywhere, London, from LA, right? We have access to all of these different mentors all over the globe, and that's what our companies would have access to.
So what led you to Techstars, and why did you become the program manager for the organization?
Such a good question. Everyone always asks me this. Well, I've always been interested in entrepreneurship and like doing things faster, right? Which coincidentally is like Techstars' motto, like do more faster, and then give first. So I recently have received my master's in urban planning from NYU Wagner, and our motto is always like giving first and like being public service. So it's kind of a nice kind of like mixture of things that are at the core of who I am. I've worked in several industries like education, health, and most recently in urban planning policy, but I've always found myself asking, how do we do things to serve people faster and more efficiently? How do we get, how do we make things better for people? Like, how do we become more innovative with ideas? And sometimes I would make suggestions that were a little bit out of the box, right? And sometimes, you can't really, if you have like an idea that's like I don't want to say like a wacky idea, but something that's out of the box and doesn't fit like the textbook case of this is how you should do things. Sometimes people don't want to hear that. And, people are stuck on precedent and like, how do you do this? And how do you do things the right way? And while that way is good, and I don't want to deter anyone from that thinking, it was just something for me that was always burning inside of me. Like, how do we go beyond that? How do we go above and beyond? Beyond like what you can find in a book. And while I love books, right? Like, I just think that it's important to try things and do things and figuring out puzzles. So, I've just been trying to figure that out over the years. And one of my friends, fast forward to like 2019 said to me, hey, let's do like a Techstars startup weekend. And it was a Techstars diversity weekend, actually. And I had never heard of Techstars, right? Like, I went to NYU, like I have friends who went to like Wharton and Penn and CBS and all these great schools, and I had never heard of Techstars. And my friend said, let's just do it. Let's just pitch an idea. Let's see how it goes. If it doesn't work, like what's the worst that happens? It doesn't work and you work on someone else's idea. And startup weekend, I was completely enamored with how fast things move. It was such a fast-paced experience. I learned so much in such a short amount of time that weekend. And I thought, wow, how can I be a part of this? How can I do this? I didn't know how to put those pieces together. And Jenny Fielding, which is the MD, the managing director of Techstars New York City, she was one of the judges. And, just to see her move in a room and see all the other judges on the panel asking these really great questions, I was like, wow, I would love to work with her. That would be amazing, work with her. And I think a few months later, I saw the job posting. I was like, whoa, this is like, if this isn't a sign, I don't know what is, right? In my past, I always thrive in positions where I'm like doing like partnership management and relationship building. I think that's super important to figure out, you know, how do people tick? How do people think? How do they tick? What can they offer someone else, right? And and what can we offer them? And then operations, which is the other side of my role as a program manager, is being in the middle of everything, right? I love to be in the middle of everything. I'm a planner. I really enjoy that. So when I saw the role as a program manager, I thought, wow, I can do partnership development, right? Which has me talking to mentors, like over 250 plus mentors on a day-to-day basis, getting to know who they are, seeing like, okay, which one of these mentors, working with Jenny to see which one of these mentors is a good fit for our companies, for our mentor office hours, as we mentioned, and beyond that. And working with investors, learning about that space rather quickly, I'll say. And then the other part is the operations, which is I get to kind of run that program along Jenny. So kind of like a lot of that behind the scenes, really kind of like orchestrating the whole thing. And it just felt like, this is great, right? Like I know one day I would like to build something and be an entrepreneur, but I don't know what yet. So this feels like a nice kind of, you know, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. You get the chance to see all these other companies, you know, form from the beginnings, the early stages. I think that's cool too.
Yeah, definitely. I came in at Techstars in March, and we were in the middle, or like towards the tail end of recruiting, had about a month left of recruiting, and just to see the iteration that the founders were able to do within that time frame from the time I started in the beginning of March to applications closed April 5th, just seeing how quickly that these companies moved. I've never seen anything like that in my life, and it was just great. And then when we finally extended our 10 offers and then seeing them grow so much over the summer, have great traction and really just kicking ass. It was just such a great experience.
What are you looking for as far as companies that are maybe applying to the program?
Yeah, so we're looking for a variety of things, right? We like companies we like early stage companies. So if you're pre-product or pre-revenue to revenue, like that's our jam. We love that. We love, I can't underscore this enough, a team, right? Your team has to be really like well put together, right? So for example, if we'd like your team to have a diverse skill set. So we would like to see that we like technical teams. So if you have in-house tech, like someone who can help you build your product, that's like a gold mine. I think that's fantastic. Even if your business is a little bit unclear, right? Like we see that you're having traction, you're a resilient team, your company, like you're doing some really great things. You're not afraid to pivot if there's a challenge that, you know, comes up. Like that's something that we look for. And yeah, right. And we don't just look for teams only during the application season, right? We're looking for them all year round, right? So yeah.
Okay, so like, what's your favorite thing about the NYC startup scene?
Yeah, I think my favorite thing is that people are just so helpful, right? You know, like I jumped right in March, working with Jenny and Techstars, and it was just, people are just so helpful. They're open to getting a quick chat with you, a quick 10-minute chat. All the industry experts are, you know, available. Once you're a part of that network, it's, you know, there's nothing that people won't do for you, right? The doors are open and the opportunities are endless. People are just willing to talk with you. The network is, it's very vast. I love that there's just so much diversity in terms of industries. And I think that, you know, the industry is very well aware of like what they have to do and are doing to find even more diverse founders, a bit, whether it's their gender makeup, their gender identity, or their racial identity. So really kind of pushing forward and always asking the hard question of, okay, shit, we didn't do a good job. How do we do better, right? So I think that that's a really important thing in like in this space right now, just constantly asking questions. Who do we talk to? How do we get into this space? And I think that because it's so open, right? Like, you know, people kind of have the mentality of in the ecosystem of they're willing to teach something and someone has to be willing to learn something, right? So I think those are two important aspects of the startup space in New York. Yeah.
What would you tell, I guess this is maybe something for your mentors, but what would you tell someone if they had a 9 to 5 and, they got access to this program? It's 13 weeks. It just happens to be in New York, but they're 2 hours away. What would you tell that type of person or founder?
Yeah, that's a good question. If you are, you have to work your 9 to 5 to make it, and you're working on your dream, you should go for your dream, right? Obviously, think about your financials and get all of that in order too. But this is such a great opportunity. We invest $120,000 in each company. I think it was about $100,000 convertible note and a $20,000 for 6% common stock equity. And the network takes you far. And if you're willing to do the work, the returns are, I think they're endless. I think it is a great return for someone to kind of do it. It is also, I will say, not for the faint-hearted. It's a very scary thing to just jump off the deep end and put your whole self into something. But I think that's what being an entrepreneur is, right? Is this, you believe in this concept, you have your team, you know what you need to do. You just need to kind of you have now this link, this thing that can help you grow more and do more. It's why wouldn't you want to try,
Yeah, I agree. So let's see. So who are some of the companies that Techstars NYC has partnered with, and what are the desired goals for those partnerships?
Yeah, so I think we have a few different types of partnerships. So one of our partnerships we call them global network partners. So those are companies like Google, Amazon, Twilio, ChargeBee, Pilot, HubSpot, et cetera, so many. And the goal of partnering with global network partners is to make sure that they're providing all of our founders and alumni resources. So for example, you need Google Ads, right? We offer, because we're partnered with Google, you'll have a discount for being able to access Google Ads. If you're trying to get access to AWS, we have a credit that founders are able to tap into. So founders and alumni can tap into. So that's a super important partnership. And our partners are wonderful. They're always there to support our founders and doing such great things. And then the flip side of that, we partner with so many entrepreneurship groups and groups that work with underrepresented founders like Digital Undivided, other universities, Women 2.0. And I think the important part of that is to make sure that we're not just looking for founders in the same place, right? We're not just getting the same referrals over and over, rinse and repeat, that we're making sure that we're finding we're growing and finding and making a diverse cohort of founders.
Very cool.
How has COVID-19 affected or impacted Techstars or the program?
Yeah. Man, that question. So COVID-19 is a very unfortunate, I can't think of another word right now. I feel like that word doesn't do it justice. It's such a horrible experience in general for the country and the state of the world. But Techstars and a lot of our companies, a lot of our accelerator programs had to pivot from in-person to virtual instantly, an overnight thing, right? And typically the value is being in person, having those lunches and meeting mentors. But I think that we did such a wonderful job, really, with some learnings, of course, because you can't grow if you don't learn. Did a wonderful job really pivoting and going to a virtual experience, right? We, luckily for us, we already have learnings from Techstars Anywhere. So Techstars Anywhere is one of our accelerators that runs virtually. That's always run virtually. It's been around for a few years with Techstars. So we had a lot of learnings from them. We kind of had a playbook, so to speak, to kind of flip to once we had to kind of flip to the in-person to virtual. And then for the other subsequent terms that started after Techstars New York City, we started we were completely virtual. And a lot of the learnings were like, how do you facilitate a network and an experience and fun and camaraderie on Zoom, right? Like people are tired of Zoom. But so we have to make it fun, right? So what did we do? We joined forces with LA for a few of our fun foundational workshops, for the KPI workshops. Like, this is how to learn how to do your KPIs. That way you're hearing from founders, not just outside of yourself. So I thought that was a really nice twist and really awesome experience. Jenny and I, we have industry experts come in almost every single day for daily check-ins to share like a short bursts of brilliance with our founders. So like we made sure to like get that extra value. So that's something that they would normally get in person. So we made sure to add that into our component for virtual. And all the other workshops and things like that, I think because I am an ops person and all of our program managers are super hardcore ops people, like we have 2 laptops and an iPad and we double check Zoom and make sure it doesn't crash. Like you have to be super organized and very thorough on how you're going to run the program. So we take a lot of time and pride in preparing our founders and our guest speakers and industry experts and mentors to be prepared to use the Zoom platform. While we try to be innovative in the different breakout rooms that we use and how we use the breakout rooms, and also mindful that any meeting that we have is a meeting you have to have, right? We're not just adding endless meetings onto your calendar. Every meeting is impactful. Every meeting is founder first. And so I think we did a pretty good job. Hopefully hoping that COVID, starts to eventually go away so that we can have in person again. But yeah, doing a pretty good job so far.
Yeah, it sounds like you are. Man, I hate going to meetings and people just have meetings to have meetings. That's the absolute worst.
Yes, I hear you.
But are there any founders that you're glad that you supported that their startup?
Oh man, well, all of them. All of our founders, like they're all unique in their own ways. Like I think, like as I mentioned, we have companies that are in future of workspace, which now is such a critical time to talk about this. To see those companies really do a great job. It's like Anthill, Cabinet, really crushing it. We have like our fintech companies who are really thinking of, how to bring banking to micro and small, like micro and can't talk, entrepreneurs in Nigeria, and then eventually worldwide. So they're doing such great things. So they're doing API integration with banking. And then we have a gig economy company. They're just fantastic. So they're not a gig economy company, excuse me. They work and serve the gig economy. So they're fintech/gig economy as cover. They're fantastic. And so many, we had our DM, they're women's health, right? It's a women's health platform. So you no longer just have to Google things to learn about women's health. You can actually go to this really neat network that they created, this really neat app that they created to really enhance the network and learning about women's health. And all the other companies, even if I'm not mentioning them, they were just so fantastic, like 1SM, Botany, Radish Health, right? Like they're all fantastic. Like it's so hard to choose a favorite because they're all doing such impactful things.
So far, is there like a magic number of a team size that seems to like ensure success or increase your likelihood of success?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. So we always say that we look for teams of 2 or more, and particularly for Techstars New York City. So we look for teams of 2 or more, but that doesn't mean that a solo founder is someone that we wouldn't be interested in, right? Like if you have a great product or idea and you have some traction and you're a solo founder, let's talk. Let's see like how, like where your product is, where your traction is, right? So we're not completely pushing off the idea of solo founders. In fact, this year we have 2 companies that were solo founders out of our 10 companies that we accepted. As I mentioned, we look for teams that have in-house tech. So super important because you're going to be iterating and changing a lot. But yeah, so there is no, magic number of team size. So anywhere from 2 to, I guess, 20, right? So really, yeah.
Okay. So you worked at Girls Who Code, which is a great, great organization.
Mhm.
So what are some of your biggest lessons from there that you brought to Techstars?
Yeah, I think that was such a great experience for me. So I was a partnership manager for the Southeast region of the United States. So I got to talk at conferences all over about the gender parity in technology, and it exposed me to so much. Like, right, I am an East Coast girl. I'm from New York City, so it was great to have that experience to go down south and really learn like how things are done in other areas and other cities that are not the same size as New York, and realizing there's innovation everywhere, right? Like there's innovation in Mississippi, there's innovation in Alabama, there's innovation in Kansas City, right? There's innovation everywhere. So that was something that was one of the most impactful things for me. And the other thing that stuck with me from Girls Who Code, a lot of people that are there were still friends. I love them all. They're great. So CEO Reshma Sajani always talks about how do you make sure be brave and not perfect, right? And I think that was something, when I first heard it, I was like, what? That's like, how can you do that? Like, it's so hard, right? It's such a hard thing. And
Right.
kind of living in that truth and pushing myself to always be in that truth and always be in that space was super important. Especially being program manager for Techstars New York, it's no easy feat, right? You have to talk to and wrangle like mentors and investors for meetings, especially virtually. Very interesting experience, but nonetheless a great one. And having the the ability to be brave and courageous and just kind of jumping right in heads first, even, was something that, I can attribute to like my time there, like learning to just, be brave.
Nice.
Have you come across since you've been in with this program, have you come across a business idea that just seems so out there? Maybe you not understood it, or most people don't. That seems to be working, but it's just a mystery how it works.
Yeah, there's a couple that you find, but that's why we have like our industry experts and our mentors, and then Jenny, our MD. Like there are ideas that sometimes you're like, is this crazy enough to work? Like, is this gonna happen? Specifically for me, like I'm learning more about like hardware and IoT and things like that. So for me, I'm like, oh my goodness, like, what are they saying, right? And asking questions and then seeing their passion come through. And I think if you can have your passion come through and get me to understand like how this piece of hardware or this IoT or this fintech thing is going to work, and I don't have a background in that, that's great. That means that you're like one step ahead of like the curve. And yeah, so there are quite a few out there, but those companies that they've done a great job kind of like bringing you into the fold and telling you that story and crafting that narrative. I think that like, oh yeah, I could see that happening in 5 years. You're right. How do we like work together, right? So I think that's I think that's good for those companies who are a little bit more not the typical companies that you experience or have the typical ideas that you experience, being able to craft that good narrative.
So you described earlier about, I guess, the Techstars demo, but what should someone expect with Techstars Startup Weekend?
Ooh, okay. So Startup Weekends, I actually participated in that myself. So it is a 54-hour situation that starts like Friday night. You walk in, and this was my experience at Techstars New York City. Techstars Startup Weekend in New York City. You go in, and a few people go up to the stage, they pitch their idea, and then there's kind of like a group vote that happens on like the top 10 ideas, and then you kind of self-select into teams, right? And you are actually building out a product. Like you're building something. Like you're you're working on an idea and a product. It's actually a pretty intense experience, but it is so much fun. You learn about go-to-market strategy, and like you do like customer discovery, like, you know, you're outside asking questions, like, well, when we could be outside asking questions, and because I did this before COVID, and yeah, you're building, you're iterating, you're creating like what the wireframes of your product could look like you're doing so much, and then you have to present Sunday night your demo, right? You do a demo of like what's your problem, what's the solution, what's the product market fit, what's the market size, and then you show the judge and the audience how this actually works on the screen, and it's really like an amazing experience. And then your panelists are always like these great judges, right? So as I mentioned, MDs are sometimes judges, heads of like Silicon Valley Bank may be the judge, right? Like you never know like who's gonna be there. Yeah, so it's a very impactful experience for sure. And that experience that I had for Techstars Startup Weekend was like phenomenal.
Do people sleep? I mean, it's kind of 54 hours there.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends, right? Like how passionate you are. So like Friday night, you're there until, at least for our team, we were there until maybe 11. And then we came in the next morning around 7:38. And then you worked until like midnight, 1 o'clock. Some teams were there longer. Some teams left earlier, left at 7 p.m., depending. And then Sunday, you're there early and just kind of like, right? So it's like the most fastest paced experience ever.
So have any of those ideals ever became like actual companies from that?
That's a really good question. I do not know. So I actually should find it out.
All right, so I guess on the last day is you're pitching to judges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, last day you're pitching to judges and the audience, and they'll ask you questions about, you know, your products and your idea, and yeah. And then
is there a funding opportunity near at the pitch portion?
Yeah, so it depends on like the different startup weekends, but for the one that I participated in, you get the opportunity. If you're first place, you get to meet with the MD, and you get to meet with, I think it was the person in charge at like Silicon Valley Bank. I can't remember their title right now, it escapes me. And you get to learn more about them, and then you get access to that network, and then, you know, things can happen from there. Anything is possible.
Okay, so we went and talked about a lot about Techstars, and I think we covered a whole host of topics. Is there something that you want to focus on or discuss about Techstars that we didn't bring up?
No, I think we covered it. Well, our applications are open now. You can go check out our website. You can go on like techstars.com and search for our accelerator. I'll also throw in the link for Sir Walter and Jerome.
How can people reach out to you directly if they want to know more about you or being a program developer?
Yeah, sure thing. So my email is tai.hutchinson@techstars.com. So that is TAI.Hutchinson, that's HUTCHINSON @techstars.com.
Thank you. I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, you're a wealth of knowledge, just a wealth of knowledge. And definitely appreciate you taking that time to expose our audience to that knowledge about Techstars NYC. Definitely doing a lot of good things in the community, I see.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with your audience today.
Oh, thank you.
That wraps up this episode of the Disruptive Podcast by Minority Innovation Weekend. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Check us out online at www.minorityinnovationweekend.org and connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.